Welcome back to the program. We're in a segment now where we're talking about, the music business, Carnival Conversations. And our guest for that is Mr. Nigel Campbell. He's a music industry analyst and an event producer. Nigel, good to see you. Nigel?
Hi, Andy. Morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Well, before we get going with this morning's stuff, I want to tell you that on Saturday evening I was looking around an audience for you because so there was what's his name at the Little Carib Theatre, Mr. Joseph, and he delivered what I consider to be a master class about going through the sort of history of Carnival and the music that it produced, and he was talking about he did it like in segments such that they were like semesters. He was talking about different points of the music, what we went through, that kind of stuff. And I was looking around to see whether you were there because I was saying that somebody has to write this up.
Well, I wasn't able to make it at that particular show.
Yeah, all right. So we're talking about this question about music and music appreciation and reforming music and so on. So what do you?
The call is dropping slightly. Say that one more time, please.
Yeah. So we're talking about the music industry in Carnival Conversations, yes. Navigating the world of events where there's music.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about what the music is saying now. As far as you see it and things you'll be commenting on. You're talking about Carnival music.
One of the things that we're in right now, of course, is this post-pandemic era where the live music industry certainly is basically has to recalibrate. Ideally, it should be pivoting to the kind of new way of things, but like most things, we go with what we're comfortable with. So that, of course, live shows are all about mass audiences and that kind of stuff. But there's always the idea of having a kind of hybrid show, which would involve streaming and video, which adds a certain amount of production cost. But for the year so far, there's not a lot of anecdotal evidence and things. Shows have been happening as we've been seeing. I mean, they had a massive show that same Saturday. CIT had their show. We've also had, in the lead up to Carnival, some cancellations, famously Soca Monarch, right? So there's a kind of tenuous business relationship in terms of how the industry is going to roll out this coming season. Things are happening slowly, but the kind of signals that we're getting is that the kind of evolution of the music industry isn't happening yet. We're content with what we have, and we're operating in that framework. But that also includes the kind of allied agencies that we have to work with to put on live shows. And I think one of the major talking points for the Carnival has been the kind of relationship between the security services and event promoters and trying to get that thing to work properly, because the systems seemingly aren't very transparent and they're very inefficient. And that has been problematic, and that has been actually cited as one of the reasons why some people have cancelled, because there's a kind of expense that's involved that is not codified in a way that you can know upfront, so you can manage your budget going into events. And that is a side problem that has been ongoing for quite some time.
Right. Well, because we spoke with Paige De Leon on the program a couple of days ago about it, and afterwards I was reflecting to what extent that is the provision of security is such a cost item that it could make or break an event.
The figures, as I said, these things aren't codified in any kind of specific way. So you can plan how much the cost of alcohol is going to be. You can plan how much you're going to pay for a band or performances. But you have to give the court and the system the amount of people you expect in your party and that kind of stuff. And then the police will, within their own self, figure out how many officers are supposed to come. And they don't give you that information, sometimes literally within 24 hours of the event. So that there's always this challenge that there's no negotiation space for having this event. And as a consequence, that is almost like a phantom expense, which seems very unfair. And it seems also very ad hoc. And from my perspective, it also seems slightly underhanded, because there's also this notion that you have to pay in cash. So I'm not sure that these accounts are passed through the whole national security accounting system in a private way. They come, they do their job, but that expense is pretty high. It could go up to the six figures. It's pretty high for some of the larger events.
Yeah, because that's one of the points she was making, is that you have to pay this money in cash, so you can't have an account anywhere that. Yeah, it sounds a little kind of, as the young people say, it sounds kind of sketchy.
Mm-hmm. It is. As I said, that we have had a Theatre and Dancehall Act, which has kind of legislated how events are, which initially, as you probably are aware, started in the 30s, and it was about, you can't bad talk somebody in Calypso 10. But that act is still in train, and that is the act under which the security provisions are necessary. But you could, as I said, there are certain fees that are already advertised. The police fees are just not advertised, and that really has an impact on an event. And there have been some certain aspects of that, even that security, which is the overtime. You have a certain slotted amount of time to make a performance. And if you have one more song to sing, there's a certain amount of leeway to get that extra song. But if you don't, they can cut your show short. It's one of those unfortunate things. I don't think that is necessary now in 2023 for a kind of streamlined live music industry as part of a larger creative industry that the government has been speaking about for many years, to be a diversification industry.
Right. What is your sense as to what has happened? Well, we're not sure if the book is closed on it yet, but the Soca Monarch 2023, it was announced that it was cancelled, but I saw a headline in the paper, was it yesterday, which the story suggests that, what is the headline, that the government is considering bailing it out?
Mm. What I understand is that, and this has been going on for quite some time. It also happened with, I don't know if you remember, Chutney Soca Monarch in 2014. The government funds the prizes of some of these events, Soca Monarch certainly. And there's always this request, and I think we saw there was a $10 million request for Soca Monarch, and the government said $3 million, and that is as far as we'll go. But the problem has been between $10 million, if $10 million is the government's input, and they can't give you, and $7 million is missing, it kind of gives the impression that the whole event was almost subsidized, almost exclusively by the government. The show within the last couple of years has seen drastic drops in the audience numbers. 2011, the year of Marshall wanted advantage. I was at the stadium. It seemed as though the stadium was overflowing. I mean, literally, it had more people, I think, than the stadium was built for. But from that high, with that Marshall Super Blue, when they kind of competed a couple of years later when Super Blue and him tied, there's been a kind of decline in terms of the audience. And I suggest that Soca Monarch's popularity was not necessarily based on some kind of idea of a simple competition, but it was also a showcase of stars. And those stars, once the stars decided to pull out and have their own shows and focus on fets and that kind of stuff, the popularity of the event fell. I also said that William Monroe, who was the kind of founder of this event, he really had a kind of magnetism and knew how to put on a show. It just has declined, and financially it just doesn't make sense to have another Soca Monarch unless you can reformat the model that would include modern stars, or probably add some elements that includes a kind of digital competition like what happens on, let's say, American Idol or something like that.
Why do you think he pulled out of cultural entrepreneurship in the way how it used to be? I think
why he pulled out?
He got tired of it.
Sure. I don't have a firm answer for that, but everybody sees there's a certain time when you have to tell yourself, okay, that's enough. I can't fault him for that. Let's let the new blood take over.
Yeah.
How successful it has been, as far as I'm seeing from the observation as I have made, it's really been a rapid decline.
Yeah. So you think, it's dying a slow death, that particular occasion, that particular event?
The brand is still very popular. People still talk about the brand, and of course, if they reminisce on the heyday and that kind of stuff, there can be a reformation of that Soca Monarch brand and the whole business model for Soca Monarch, because I think the brand has a certain amount of cachet. Whether or not the brand will sustain with a new head or a new business model, it's to be seen, because there's been the rise of the fete, and these fetes are really dominating what Carnival has become. Years ago, Carnival was about shows, the March Gras, Calypso Fiesta, kings and queens. Nowadays, people come to the country because of fêtes.
Yeah.
They come for fête, and then Carnival and the Road for a number of bands is a fête, an all-inclusive fête. So the fête aesthetic, to quote a former director of culture, is now taken over Carnival altogether.
Yeah, because every year there's more fêtes, and then more schools throwing fêtes, you know.
Mm-hmm. The fête as a fundraiser, I mean, the model has worked, right? And there's been an innovation, as I said. CIT had their fête on Saturday, and to me, their innovation is how they present the stage. The stage itself is an attraction, and they also have top quality food. And fêtes nowadays are easily costing $1,000. The all-inclusive fête, that is, easily costing $1,000 plus, well, and they're full houses.
1,000 is in the mid-range, because some of them, 1,200 and so on, and people are paying it.
There's one fête I know is going to be $3,000. Carnival Sunday, go figure.
Wow, and it probably will be sold out just as
possibly.
Yeah, and where does that leave the Calypso tents?
One more time, please.
Where does that leave the Calypso tents? Because, I mean, there was a point in which that was the high point of the season, going to the tents, and, whether it was the original Young Brigade.
As I said, I think what has happened is, I think audiences have matured in terms of their understanding of quality, and this is going to be a controversial statement on my part. Calypso tents, for years, when Spectacular Forum was reigning, they also had a band of stars, original Young Brigade, Calypso Review. They were stars. What has happened over the years is the Calypsonian, his quality has dropped. The organization of the show has dropped. As I said, you can see a soca artist as a performer, as an experience. It's a little more exciting than sitting down and hearing great calypsos. You could listen to the Calypso Dimanche Grand Final and hear great calypsos. But as an entertainment and as an experience, I think the local audiences have matured, and they've seen what an experience is. And it has reached a point where there were diminishing returns, and certainly there was this idea that the government was subsidizing a Calypso tent all the way through. And you couldn't, some people didn't bad talk the government, and that kind of controversial edge that we expected from a Calypsonian. If people just said, nah, it doesn't make sense. And there were other entertainment options. Other entertainment options including going to the beach. So the Calypso tent model did not evolve also. And as a consequence, we're in a situation where Calypso tents are subsidized in a big, big way. And people will go, but the numbers are very small.
Yeah, if you want to go back a little bit, Spectacular tried to change the formula as it would, as it were, because there was a huge differences between what you got from Spectacular promotions and productions as opposed to the what was the original Young Brigade or the Kitchener tent at Seaman and Waterfront, and so what people call real Russo versus soca.
What has to happen is, in terms of the entertainment industry, and it's clearly happening in soca, artists themselves have to be their own brands. The artists become brands, and they become ambassadors for their music. And audiences are clearly looking at brands. So as Marshall famously said, he wasn't going to perform this year except at his concert, Carnival Friday. He made an appearance at the CIC event. But people talk as though if I'm not seeing Marshall, I'm not going to an event. Because Marshall's brand is powerful. We kind of know the Big Five in soca, but at one point, Big Five in soca was Marshall, Kes, Punchy, Fayan, and Deathstroke. Right? They have another young generation, Voice and Preedy and Second Son, these others. But they become name brands. Calypsonians never did that. Kitchen and Sparrow did that. And their brand became more powerful than the event almost. And I think those brands, a new generation of Calypsonians didn't do anything to enhance their brands, whether by default or they didn't know how. I'm not sure what the reason was. But there can be a case that a Calypsonian like David Rudder, we kind of associate him as that kind of bridge between Calypso and soca.
And soca.
But as a brand, he worked. He definitely worked, and his brand was, and he wrote lyrics. There has to be another way to reframe the Calypsonian. If it's a matter of getting on social media in a big way, producing videos in a big way, printing a book of lyrics, these kind of things. reconfigure the image of the Calypsonian in the 21st century.
Yeah, you called the Big Five and in soca, and you didn't mention Super Blue.
Well, it's not that it's not that I didn't mention Super Blue. When, as I said, at a time that was the case, and certainly in 2011, which I kind of cited as a kind of pinnacle of soca monarch.
Yeah.
Those were the Big Five, and Sherwin was there, and Sherwin Dubois was there. At that time, Super Blue was not on the scene. We all know why, and I don't want to repeat it here, but we all know why he wasn't there. And then when he returned to soca in a big way, which was Fantastic Friday, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
He won the road march, and he tied for Soca Monarch King.
Yeah. But so he's more or less retired now.
Well, certainly his voice has been affected, but his hits are his hits. It's Super Blue. We know all his songs. We can sing it word for word, get something away. He changed the aesthetic of soca. He influenced, I think, a whole generation of soca artists. But there's, again, he hasn't had a recent hit. He's still making music. He has collaborations with young artists. As of now, he won a road march. After that, so come on. So he won a second road march, as I say, after his quote-unquote comeback after 2011. So it's not that he's not out to sea at all. But in terms of a younger generation of soca artists, that Big Five number that I called, they were the ones who were kind of moving it in the early part of the 21st century. They were the ones who were kind of moving where soca was going.
Yeah. And what's there? What's left for people like us? I mean,
What's left?
Our age group.
Yeah, well, I'm an eternal fan and an eternal optimist of our industry. So that I think that, as I said, there's this kind of newer generation, Voice and Preedy and Second Star and Nyla Blackman and others, who are kind of moving forward and changing the way that they perform because they're on social media, they're on YouTube and that kind of stuff, and they engage with their fans differently. They don't necessarily need to have a concert every week to get to their fans. I hold that anybody, as you say, our generation, we need to get with the technology. We need to be on social media. We need to watch. We need to be part and parcel of what is happening here. Because if we get left behind and pine away for the days of this Calypso 10, we will get left behind. And the whole industry will become irrelevant to us, and that ain't going to help anybody.
Yeah. So you think, well, again, the Calypso 10 has to reform itself and get refashioned if it is to survive, because as you say, the introduction and sort of the envelopment of everything else by the FETs, that will just dominate.
The FET, as I said, the FET aesthetic, I just love that phrase. That is dominant, right? And as I said, that business model didn't exist 25 years ago. They probably had one all-inclusive FET, UE FET or something like that. But because now everybody's jumped on the bandwagon, and they have grades of FET. They used to have the public FET. They kind of talk about the silos and that kind of stuff. But now we have the cooler FET, where you bring your own drinks, but there's a certain level of freeness that exists. The all-inclusive FET, there's a lot of commentators have been saying that it's a kind of poser event, where people come and they pose and they dress up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as a part and parcel of the carnival industry, it works, and it helps drive the music. It helps drive the kind of nascent music industry that we have here, and it develops stars. I keep coming back to Voice as a young new star, Nyla Blackman. They're going to be the future of soca or the carnival music industry as it was. Marshall has admitted he kind of reached a point where he's not away from the industry, but he's not going to be in it as much as before. We spoke about Super Blue. So there has to be a kind of succession planning as it was. The FET is here to stay until some new innovation happens. Post-COVID-19, I was hoping that the innovation would have included some element of streaming or hybrid kind of thing, and certainly in terms of some of the shows, infamously Soca Monarch. Because Soca Monarch, to me, is a FET and a competition.
Yes.
But it didn't happen, but I guess things will happen sooner or later. This is a kind of wake-up call to see what happens. The economy, as we all know, is not perfect. Probably going to be going into a recession. The cost of living has gone up, so how we engage with the carnival experience may alter within the next couple of years.
Yeah, but the cost of living on an ordinary basis is not reflected by the attendance at some of these $1,000+ events. But I wanted to go back to, certainly when I was emerging, when I was growing up and so on, the big fete for Carnival was in a place called the Guardian Sports Club on Royston Road in Port of Spain.
Yeah.
We are worlds away from that kind of thing where we are now.
Yeah, you know, the beauty of social media is you can go online and see some images of party flyers from way back in the day. Even back in the 70s, $20 for fete. What is now Radisson used to be Holiday Inn Car Park.
Yes.
The big band, all live music, $20. Right? The world has moved on from that point and then, but there is also a kind of sense of an experience, as I said. So the fete is an experience more than just a concert. And that experience, I think, is what drives the live music industry. And if you're not delivering on an experience and upon a kind of expectation of things that we see or things that we absorb wherever globally, you're going to kind of get left behind. So there has to be a necessary evolution from the point of view of the artist and certainly from the point of view of the promoter and producer of these concerts, fete shows, in terms of what the new Trinidad and Tobago audience and certainly the global audience is going to be. Carnival is an experience. We don't necessarily, if you do live abroad and you cannot come home, you can also be part of the Carnival, I think.
Right.
Should be part of it.
Yeah, you could follow it on the web and by all these different means.
Correct. And with Web 3.0, the potential is even bigger. We haven't fully grasped Web 3.0 with virtual reality and that kind of stuff. There was an attempt, I think, in 2021 when we didn't have a carnival. A couple fetes had the kind of AI kind of options, and one of them had a virtual reality party. They were attempts. I don't necessarily think that we should cancel them out, but these things take baby steps. So we'll probably get there soon.
All right. Thank you very much, my friend. Nigel Campbell,
Thank you very much,
music industry analyst and event producer. We will take a break, come back before we wrap it up here. Stay with us.